Hi, and welcome to Autistic. I am a murder hornet. Yes, according to certain individuals out there, I am a murder hornet. I'm also an activist, a political agitator, an anti-science abolitionist, and a conspiracy theorist. The same people who've called me those names also say I'm selfish, ignorant, uncaring, a bully, a monster, and a destroyer of lives. Paradoxically, I'm a big pharma shill and an anti-medicine peddler of woo-woo at the same time. On top of that, I'm an autistic elitist, the wrong kind of autistic, a failed influencer, a bandwagon jumper, and not autistic at all. Oh, and I'm also 25, live in my parents' basement, and have blue hair. It's quite a list, isn't it? Now, I haven't been called all those things directly. Some of them are labels that have been squarely aimed at everyone who, like me, uses the hashtag ActuallyAutistic on social media. My first contact with the online autistic community was back in the 1990s. The internet was a very different place back in those early days. There was no social media, no video streaming, and precious little information on autism that didn't originate in the minds of some dusty professor or someone trying to make a quick buck out of the sudden increase in public awareness of autism. I've described before how the communication potential of the new tools the internet gave us brought autistic people together and allowed us to pool our knowledge and experience. We became our own ad hoc support networks and did something the majority of paid researchers and academics refused to do. We listened to autistic people. Not their parents, their bosses, their teachers, social workers, carers, or that guy who knew someone who was probably autistic back in the day. We built a picture of autistic life that was far more complete and inclusive of individual needs and differences than anything that came before, and we tried to tell the world. A quarter of a century later, and we're still doing the same. The Internet Toolkit has expanded our reach, and the advent of affordable and accessible tech has propelled us into the world of consumable media. Through blogs, podcasts, videos like this, and a sizable presence on social media, we're still working hard to improve public engagement and make a better future for autistic people, even though many of us know that we'll never see the full benefits of the work we do in our own lifetimes. Who's behind all this, though? There's thousands of us out there saying the same thing, so who's running the show? Where's the puppet master pulling everyone's strings? That's not a question I thought I'd ever have to answer, but it's one which the people who call us monsters demand we address. Whenever there's a controversy in the autistic world, in amongst the voices of advocates, allies, and ordinary concerned autistic people, there's always a minority who take a contrary view. And they're not above using dirty tricks to further their aims. When fighting an indefensible corner without evidence or the weight of numbers behind them, desperation can make people fall back on a number of well-established tactics to get themselves noticed. One of the most potent of these is fictional enemies. It's a political cliché that inadequate leaders and despots losing their grip can unite their people in the face of a common enemy. And it's this which the detractors have chosen in the form of a non-existent organisation called ActuallyAutistic. Like many other recent examples, they've taken a grassroots movement for positive change and portrayed it as an evil organisation with a sinister agenda. We see it from vested interests and clueless celebrities representing organisations that have done untold harm to autistic people. From parents who resent their kids being broken by autism, and from bitter, wounded autistic people who've become so disillusioned they've come to believe that they could have perfect lives if only they could slice the autism out of their brains. They've created a boogeyman they call ActuallyAutistic, or occasionally the ND mob, ND being neurodiversity. A fictional cabal of self-serving bullies and fakers committed to sabotaging the natural order based on nothing more than a social media hashtag. Hashtags are a powerful tool. They're an integral cog in the machine of social media and have become so ubiquitous, people even say the words hashtag before saying something profound, catchy or amusing in real life. Governments, corporations and PR companies monitor the numbers on hashtags they invent to gauge their popularity, and yet they are a completely democratic tool. Hashtags only trend if people are interested enough to use them, and absolutely anybody can start one off. You don't need status or power to be the first one to put a hash symbol in front of a word or a phrase, and unless you have access to bot networks, it's nigh on impossible to make a hashtag trend. Whilst some tags become so popular they enter the political discourse, like Black Lives Matter and Me Too, the vast majority never reach the public consciousness. That's not what they're there for. They're used by small groups with shared interests or concerns to find each other and keep in touch. There's hashtags for teachers to talk about education, for people who build extraordinary creations with Lego, and for fans of every TV show, musician, artist, author and philosopher. Most hashtags never trend, and nobody expects them to. When the autistic community migrated from blogs and internet relay chat to social media, the hashtag Autistic was the main port of call for many of us. It was a logical choice. If you were autistic and wanted to talk to other autistic people specifically, it made sense. We thought we were reasonably safe when we used it because why would anyone who wasn't autistic want to use it? We were wrong. It didn't take long for the trolls, the bullies and the vested interests to cotton on and use it against us. They tried to drown out our voices and used our own hashtag to push their damaging agenda of tragedy and cure. Twisted martyr parents who exploited their autistic children for attention and profit spouted vitriol at those of us who dared to speak up, whilst the medical charlatans and bogus therapists saw it as a way of reaching potential customers. It became a toxic mess of conflicting priorities. Autistic people looking for support found themselves facing a barrage of misinformation, commercial pressures and aggression from anyone whose autism agenda was challenged. So a new hashtag caught on, and it stuck. There was an originator, but no organiser, no mastermind behind it and no publicity campaign. Autistic people gravitated to it and as a community decided that this time we wouldn't let it go. The first rule of using the ActuallyAutistic tag is that you must actually be autistic. That's it. That's the only rule there is. You don't have to be diagnosed, but you must be autistic, and it's not something that can be easily faked. If you're not autistic, then it's disingenuous to claim you are. So when non-autistic people use the hashtag, they're asked not to. Now and again, the same types of interests that made the original tag of autistic unsafe try to invade our safe space again, but so far they've been kept at bay. But what if I'm not autistic but I want to ask autistic people a question, you might ask? Well, that's easy. The power of hashtags can help you out there. As easy as it was to establish ActuallyAutistic as a space for us to talk to each other, the tag Asking Autistics allows non-autistic people to address the community. That's all there is to it. ActuallyAutistic is nothing more than a hashtag that allows autistic people to talk to other autistic people in comparative safety. There's no ActuallyAutistic pressure group, no leaders or spokespersons, and no head office to address complaints to, and that frustrates those who want to identify us as an enemy. There isn't a monolithic entity at which to direct their ire, so they've invented one. The reality is that much of the current public understanding of autism is based on myths, bad science and sensationalist headlines. There isn't even a definitive academic consensus on what autism actually is, with rival theories constantly jostling for prominence. In my time as a diagnosed autist, it's gone from an extremely rare and bizarre condition to an everyday diagnosis, from 1 in 10,000 to around 1 in 50. And that trend continues as more and more undiagnosed adults are identified. Prominent scientists in the field have formulated autism theories, published papers on them, and done lecture tours promoting their work, only to go full circle to disown those theories and distance themselves from them, all in the time since I was diagnosed. Whilst those who feel threatened by autistic people speaking up and being heard have woven a fantasy of a directed, politically motivated organisation, all that actually exists is a shared point of view. The reason that point of view is so commonplace is because it makes sense. It can be backed up with facts, so it wins over hearts and minds. When you have a good grasp of the background information and appreciate the impact ignoring autistic people has had, it doesn't take a genius to see the sense behind it. The concept of neurodiversity is easy to understand and dovetails neatly with other diversity issues. The practice of applied behaviour analysis, or ABA, horrifies people when they learn the truth behind the glossy sales pitches. The segregation and confinement of distressed autistic kids and the use of electric shocks to teach social niceties are barbaric to almost anyone. And the fact that so many autistic people have challenged the orthodox view with thoughtful, easily relatable arguments is steadily nudging the public towards a different, more realistic view of autism. To those whose source of income, attention, or need for something to blame is caught up in the idea of autism being a tragic lack of humanity, then your days are numbered. Pointing the finger at non-existent organisations and playing the victim may turn the heads of bigots and isolationists, people who are already afraid of everything they dismiss as woke, but it won't turn the tide of public opinion. Sooner or later, the facts and the compassion of those who have sufficient empathy to imagine how they would feel in autistic shoes will prevail. Thank you for watching. Autistic releases new content every Wednesday, so please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified. If you want to support the channel to continue making thought-provoking films about autistic life, then please support us on Patreon or pick up some exclusive Autistic merch.